What's up, everybody? GeauxBurns cruising around in the 1940s for a new Discuss vid. This time we're doing it on L.A. Noire sequels or prequels, whichever you prefer. So L.A. Noire got re-released this past week for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and it's coming to the HTC Vive in December. And over a course of 4 episodes, 4 days, I live streamed L.A. Noire on the PlayStation 4, 25 plus hours altogether. I had a good time. There was also salt, as to be expected from any of my Let's Plays or live streams, but overall, I really enjoyed my very first playthrough of L.A. Noire. And spoiler warning, we're going to discuss potential sequel or prequel ideas to L.A. Noire, which means that we are going to discuss things from the game itself. So if you have yet to play L.A. Noire, or if you did not watch my live stream of L.A. Noire, you might get spoiled. So, just warning you in advance before we continue. So at the end of my live stream, I informed the loyal viewers and fans that were watching that today we were going to do a discuss video about, this topic, sequel, prequel ideas for L.A. Noire, and I even tweeted it out on Saturday after the live stream was over, giving you an opportunity to submit your ideas as well. It was a very short notice thing. I only gave you like a day to submit your idea, but we do have a couple ideas, actually 4 ideas to be specific, and then we're going to go over my idea regarding a sequel or prequel for L.A. Noire. First, let's start with Carlene, our retweet warrior, off of Twitter. My idea is a prequel about Roy Earl. What a surprise. Now, throughout the live stream, every time Roy showed up, she was smitten with Roy. Something about being, in love with a bad boy, right? Yeah. So anyways, Roy Earl is one of Cole's partners that you get when he's in Advice. When he's in Advice, he gets Roy as a partner. And her idea is about a prequel surrounded Roy Earl, how he got into the Force and how he got corrupted. She just really wants a backstory on Roy's character, and she will be fine. I'm sure, Carlene, you would like nothing more than a Roy Earl noir type game, focused specifically around Roy. Next, we go to Gordon off of Facebook. My idea would be after Cole died. Okay, see, I just warned you guys a few minutes ago. Spoilers. So, yes, at the end of L.A. Noire, Cole sacrifices himself. Elsa finds out she is pregnant with his child. Turns out to be a boy. He grows up and joins the police force. But his father's past still haunts him, so he tries to break Cole's shadow. That would be my idea. You also have to bear in mind that Cole also had 2 daughters from his wife. That's right, Cole was married. He was married. He had a wife, Maria, I think, and 2 daughters. But, we don't really spend much time with them. But he also ends up in an affair with a singer at a blues jazz club, Elsa, who I guess was, she's German, but she was escaping the Nazis because they killed her family or something. She ends up in L.A., and she falls in love with Cole. And they start a relationship, and he dies. But it's possible that Elsa could be pregnant, and it's a very real possibility that her son and Cole's son could very well be a protagonist for a potential future L.A. Noire game. I'm guessing, Gordon, it would be set in L.A. as well, and would probably be called, L.A. Noire 2. All right, next we're going back to Twitter with Steven. He actually threw out a few ideas. All of them have potential. A sequel, Vegas around the 1960s, parties, murder, casinos, and all that fun stuff would work perfectly. A prequel, New York or Chicago during the early 40s or late 50s, investigating the mafia and mobs. Now, whenever I think of the name noir, like L.A. Noire, I'm thinking the 40s. That's where I'm feeling this era. So I feel like that it's okay to change the setting from L.A. to New York or to Chicago or some other city in America, but I feel like you have to kind of keep it in the 1940s, I feel like that's where noir resides, and it would make sense in my opinion if they did that. So I don't have a problem with them changing the city. That'd be cool, but at the same time, I do feel like it needs to stay in the 1940s. But still, very interesting idea, Steven. And finally, we get to Unknown Assassin off of Twitter. And this is actually Unknown Assassin's idea because he's the one who tweeted me saying, hey, I have an idea for a sequel. And once you're done with the live stream, so you don't get spoiled, I'll tell you it. And so I thought, you know what? That'd actually be kind of a cool idea for a discuss video. So here's Unknown Assassin's idea. Sequel. Immediately after the events of the first game, you play as Jack Kelso again. So here's another spoiler. Now, you don't always play as Cole in L.A. Noire, which I was surprised about. There are some missions where you actually play as Cole's, well, war buddy, Kelso. They're not exactly friends. They know each other. They have kind of like I guess they're frenemies. But Kelso's also a good guy. In fact, I would say Kelso's a better guy than Cole is. I like Kelso a lot more than Cole. So that would make sense, you know, where you play as Kelso in L.A. Noire 2. He is still, a DA special investigator, and the DA instructs him to help investigate the LAPD, which also includes Roy Earl, the Vice Squad. He also does this to find justice for Cole Phelps after his death. So, yeah, that also has potential of being a really cool sequel to L.A. Noire. Plus, you would be able to keep the same characters that were established in the first L.A. Noire game, like Jack Kelso, Elsa, along with Roy Earl, and some of the others as well. Now, here's my idea for a potential sequel or prequel to L.A. Noire. Obviously, I titled this L.A. Noire Sequel Ideas. I didn't put prequel in there, but it could still imply prequel or sequel. It doesn't really matter. All right, so mine is going to be probably a prequel set in a different city like New York, Chicago, or San Francisco. Maybe San Francisco would make more sense because it's over there on the West Coast as well, whereas Chicago and New York are on the other side of the country. So maybe a San Francisco noir game. And I would like to set it in the 40s as well because, like I mentioned a moment ago, I think it just makes more sense to have this type of game stick in the 1940s. But it would be during World War II, while World War II is still going on. Maybe in like the early 1940s, like 1941, 1942, somewhere in that ballpark. And you're going to be playing with new characters. You have a new protagonist, you have new partners, and especially if it's a new city like San Francisco, that would only make sense, right? And so I think you would play, I guess, maybe a soldier that got injured while at war, early on in the war. Because there's a lot of people, when they first went off to war against Japan, they got injured. Maybe he was a sailor. Maybe he was an officer aboard a battleship that got sank, and he was injured. And, he has kind of like survivor's guilt. And he gets honorably discharged from the service during the Battle of Midway or, one of the other island-hopping campaigns. And he ends up going back to San Francisco, and he becomes a police officer for the San Francisco Police Department, and eventually you work your way into becoming a detective. And I would like a lot better fleshed out backstory. Now, there was definitely some backstory to Cole in L.A. Noire, but a lot of it had to do with his service in the military, and the wife and kids really got neglected. Like, you see the wife at the beginning of the game, and he talks about his wife. And then eventually you find out that not only does he have a wife, he also has 2 daughters. But you never spend any time with them, like going on a picnic or just hanging out at home, having some different stories or reading bedtime stories to your little girls. I really kind of feel like that dehumanized Cole a little bit by not having that. And you only encounter the wife again later on in the game when it's revealed to the entire city of LA that you've been having this fling with Elsa. So obviously your wife is pissed off at you. She throws you out. She's going to divorce you and take the kids away. And then that's the last time you see Elsa and the kids. You may have saw her at the funeral. I don't know if that was her in the front row or not. Maybe not. I don't know. But the point is, I would like more of that fleshed out if, hypothetically, this protagonist in San Francisco Noire does also have a wife and kids. But I would like for that to be an option as well. We'll get to that in a moment. Choices. That's what I'm talking about. Choices. Similar to the Telltale games. Now, there's an illusion of choice in Telltale games where you think you have a choice, but in the end, it still relatively ends the same way, with a few exceptions. I just like to have some choices in a sequel, prequel to L.A. Noire. Like, for example, the type of cop you want to be. All right, so yes, you start off as a uniform cop, but you do eventually become a detective. But what I'm talking about is, do you want to be more like Cole? Do you want to be more like Kelso? Or This will make Carlene happy. Do you want to be more like Roy Earl? Do you want to be sleazy? Do you want to take money? Do you want to be, a little dirty or a lot dirty? It'd be kind of cool if like you had that option, to decide what kind of detective were you going to be. You still had to solve the cases and stuff, but it wasn't simply black and white. It was like black, white, and a little gray area. So maybe you don't want to be completely shady, but maybe you wouldn't mind taking a few bucks in here and there. Or you could just go hardcore dirty cop like Roy Earl is. And that kind of plays out throughout the game, depending on which arc you choose to go with. And it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, so that everyone, can play San Francisco Noir a different way. And it also adds replay, so that whenever you play it as a clean cop, it ends a different way. And then you can go back and play it as a kind of somewhere in the middle, a gray cop, or at the end you go back and you play as an extremely dirty cop and see how that pans out as well. So I definitely like the idea of choices. And the same thing goes for the desks. The desks are the different departments you can be part of within the police department when you're a detective. Like you start off in traffic as a detective in LA Noire, but there's other departments as well that you end up eventually getting into, like homicide, vice, as well as arson. There's also burglary, but they do a 6-month time skip whenever Cole goes into burglary. So he goes from traffic to burglary, but we never see him do anything in burglary. He goes from burglary straight into homicide 6 months later. And I would like them to add burglary as one of the desks you can work at as well. So you have to work in one in order to unlock the other. But at the same time, you can decide which desk you want to go to. So after you unlock traffic, you can either stay in traffic and there'll be random cases that generate that you can just keep doing. Or if you feel like it, you can move up to burglary, you can move into arson or homicide. And some of those you'll have no choice but to go into, depending when you get to a certain checkpoint in order to advance the story of the game. But at the same time, it'd be really cool if, for example, you beat Vice, but you don't want to stay in Vice. You want to go back to homicide, or you want to go to burglary or traffic or arson. And then more of those types of cases would randomly spawn throughout the game, which would kind of make it open-ended, but at the same time kind of fun as well. Now, the cases themselves, I would like there to be more variety of cases, because there were some normal cases, but most of the cases connected to something else going on. Like, for example, the werewolf or the Black Dahlia killer, which was a serial killer in LA Noire. It's like all the murders you were coming across were tied together. I mean, what are the chances, right? I don't mind some of that, where some of the crimes, lead to a bigger arc like a serial killer, but I also want more one-off cases. Like, okay, so this random person was just killed in a crime of passion or for money, and there's just one killer, and he or she only killed this one person, and then that's it. They're not out there killing this person and that person over there, leaving calling cards and doing all this stuff, playing games with the, San Francisco Police Department. I just think that there should have been more, quote-unquote, one-off cases. And there were a few, but it just makes more sense. It would add a little bit more realism to the game if there were, more one-offs mixed in along with a serial killer arc. And, of course, a conspiracy arc as well, because they had that throughout the arson case, with this whole, land buying scheme that some of them were responsible for. But anyways, just to have a better mixture of case varieties would be cool. Along with what I mentioned, if you choose to stay in one of the particular desks, it would just mean that more random cases would generate, and they would obviously have to limit the types, but at the same time, it'd be kind of cool if you could just go investigate this murder or that. But maybe that might be too complicated, but still, a girl can dream, right? And in between cases, this is something I really wish was in LA Noire, even though it was a long-ass game for me. My first and only playthrough so far was 25 plus hours. By the way, that includes the DLC cases as well. And it was my first playthrough, and I'm not the world's best gamer and detective. I'm not a very good detective, as most of you know by now. It's a good thing I chose not to go into a career of criminal justice, right? All right, so anyways, I want some downtime in between cases, which would, I guess, make the game feel more open world, where you're not automatically jumping from this case to that case. You would simply have to go back to your desk to trigger the next case. But in between cases, you can go do stuff. Like, for example, spend time with your wife or your lover. And you get to decide what you want. Do you want to be a family man? Do you want a wife and kids? Or do you want to be, a bachelor and you just want to go out there and, smooth over the ladies, or whichever angle you want to go. That's just the choice you have to make in the game. And you can also choose the marriage route, but you could also choose between either being faithful or unfaithful to your partner. That goes back to choices if you end up deciding you want a wife and you want kids, to go with that, or one kid, whatever. And then, of course, you can go do stuff, either solo or with your kids or with your wife or your lover, like go out to eat, go to the bar, go dancing, go to a blues jazz club, go see a movie. Or you can also spend time with your partners and potentially boost your trust and relation with each of them, because with each desk you would have a different partner. And perhaps even they would make it to where you could select which partner you prefer. Like if you prefer partner A over partner B or C, then you can stick with partner A, and they simply move with you from one desk to the next, so you guys can continue building up that rapport, that trust, that bond, that relationship. And regarding each partner, I do like the fact in LA Noire, each partner is different. They're played by different actors. They each look different. They each have different mannerisms. But I would also like for each partner to have different pros and cons and different strengths and weaknesses. Because most of the time, the partners were just hanging out with you. And I love the fast travel mechanic, where if you didn't want to travel from this case to that case, or that scene to that scene, or this store to that store, you could just let them drive, and then it would go there, and you wouldn't have to spend so much time driving across the city. If you weren't in the mood, you could fast travel. I like that. But at the same time, it really didn't feel like the partners offered much when it came to investigating. And it just felt like they were just standing around just giving dialogue and, schmarmy comments. It would be nice if they actually provided, some sort of benefit as to being your partner besides the ability to fast travel. Like I said, pros and cons. Maybe, some of them are better at intuition and they help you with clues easier. But at the same time, they're not very good with firearms. So if you get in a shootout, they're not going to be as much help as another partner would be. Kind of like that. It would be kind of cool. Or maybe one helps you be a better bad cop or a better good cop, or gives you better clues about, like, if you're accusing somebody, they'll highlight, okay, like these 3 bits of evidence you've picked up, like one of these 3 out of the 10, will most likely, get them to squeal or turn over or confess. That'd be kind of cool if you had different pros or cons and strengths and weaknesses regarding the different partners that you could choose from. And yeah, I kind of prefer the option to choose a partner. Like you would be featured with a partner, and then you could go to your lieutenant or your captain and say, look, this is who I prefer as a partner. Like, it'd be kind of neat if that happened. And I don't know, I would just like a little bit more of that in the game. I realize in probably real life, you're kind of assigned to a partner, but I know there's times when 2 partners don't get along and, they have no choice but to break the partners up and assign them new partners. So it's a video game, and I would prefer having, someone else other than Roy Earl, who I know is going to stab me in the back the first chance he gets. Right, Carlene? All right. So anyways, that's my ideas and your ideas for a potential LA Noire sequel or prequel. Thanks again to Carlene, Gordon, Steven, as well as Unknown Assassin for submitting your ideas. And even though most likely this will never happen, I seriously doubt we'll ever get a LA Noire sequel or prequel. It's unfortunate because I would definitely enjoy playing it. However, if you too have an idea for a sequel or prequel to LA Noire, feel free and leave it below in the comments section.